Just a year ago, Ukraine looked like it was on the edge of collapse. Russia was advancing steadily on the battlefield. Ukraine's budget was running dry day by day. And even Volodymyr Zelensky was under pressure, especially after the corruption scandal that shook the country in November. Back then, many believed the outcome was already decided. But then, everything changed. No warning. No dramatic announcement. Just a quiet yet undeniable shift. Russia started to stall. Ukraine's finances stabilized in a way few expected. And most surprising of all, the world suddenly began chasing Ukraine's military technology. So what's really going on behind the scenes? In this video, we're breaking down a reality that could force a rethink. Ukraine isn't just surviving anymore, it may be entering an entirely new phase. Based on what we're seeing, there are at least 3 major reasons behind this shift. But when you put them together, it starts to look like something much bigger. The first, and most obvious, comes from Europe. A massive package, 90 billion euros. But behind that number, nothing is simple. The original plan? Use over 200 billion euros in frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. Sounds logical. It collapsed. EU members couldn't agree on who would bear the legal risk if Moscow fought back. And then everything got blocked by one name, Viktor Orban. He vetoed it. Ukraine was left hanging, no money, no clear way forward. Then came the twist. Orban lost the election. His successor, Peter Magyar, moved quickly and lifted the veto. Just like that, the money was unlocked. Not just emergency relief, but possibly something much bigger, a Europe willing to borrow collectively to fund Ukraine long-term. Remember this, when the money comes back, the game changes. And the real question is no longer, can Ukraine survive? But, who is really backing this shift and what are they preparing for next? Because money isn't the whole story. On the battlefield, something else is quietly rewriting the rules. Drones. Not the old kind. A new generation, almost autonomous. Less vulnerable to electronic jamming. No constant human control needed. Meaning? Even if signals are cut, they keep going. And in a war where manpower is stretched thin, that's a game-changing advantage. Ukraine started deploying them last year. But in recent months, production has surged. Autonomy has improved. And this may be one of the key reasons Russia is struggling to make progress. But that's only part of it. What's more alarming is Ukraine's long-range strike capability. They're no longer just defending. They're striking deep. Refineries, export hubs, logistics networks, all within reach. By late March, Ukraine had reportedly disrupted around 40% of Russia's crude oil export capacity. The result? A sharp drop in output. In April alone, Russia was forced to cut production by 300,000 to 400,000 barrels per day. Backhand index pointing right, the steepest decline in 6 years. And here's where it gets serious. Russia's economy is starting to feel it. GDP down. Budget deficit surging. In just 2 months, the deficit nearly matched projections for the entire year. That's not a small signal. Of course, this isn't the end. If oil prices stay high, if external conditions shift, Russia could still stabilize. But one thing is clear, this war is entering a new phase, where low cost can beat raw power. And that brings us to the third and most controversial shift, ultra-cheap interceptor drones. Effective, mass-produced, and potentially redefining modern defense. Because here's the paradox catching everyone's attention, cheaper weapons are winning. Facing a shortage of Western air defense systems, Ukraine didn't wait. They adapted. Interceptor drones, not flashy, not expensive, but highly effective. They now make up around 70% of drone interceptions over Ukrainian cities. And the cost? Around $2,000 per unit. Now compare that. A missile from the MIM-104 Patriot system? About $4 million. An incoming drone? Maybe a few $1,000s. You don't need to be an expert to see the problem. Spending millions to stop something that costs thousands? That's not efficiency. That's burning money. And this exposes a controversial truth: Western technology is powerful, but in modern warfare? It's not always cost-effective. After recent tensions involving Iran, many countries began to realize this. And suddenly, they started looking at Ukraine differently. Not as a country in need of aid, but as one that has something they need. Battle-tested, low-cost, mass-producible drone systems. A combination few countries can offer. And just like that, everything shifts. Gulf nations line up: Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates. Signing security partnerships. Co-developing drone tech. Injecting capital into Ukraine's defense sector. Europe follows. Companies from Denmark, Finland, Latvia partnering with Ukrainian firms, while Germany pushes major defense packages. And Italy considers similar moves. What does this tell us? Ukraine is no longer just a recipient. It's becoming a security partner. And that leads to the most important shift of all. When you're stronger, you don't just fight better. You negotiate better. Ukraine is now entering negotiations with far more leverage. And for the first time in a long while, Vladimir Putin may have a reason to listen seriously. So here's the final question: if the balance is shifting,